Hello, and welcome back to Baby Elias's stories. We now return to The Fifth Elephant by Terry Pratchett, Part 5. "Constable Shoe," said Constable Shoe when the door of the bootmaker's factory was opened. "Homicide."
"You come about Mr. Sonky?"
said the troll who'd opened the door. Warm, damp air blew out into the street, smelling of incontinent cats and sulphur. "I meant I'm a zombie," said Red Shoe. "I find that telling people right away saves embarrassing misunderstandings later on. But coincidentally, yes, we've come about the alleged deceased."
"We?"
said the troll, making no comment about Reg's grey skin and stitch marks. "Down here, big jobs." The troll looked down, not a usual direction in Ankh-Morpork, where people preferred not to see what they were standing in.
"Oh,"
he said, and took a few steps backwards. Some people said that gnomes were no more belligerent than any other race, and this was true. However, the belligerence was compressed down into a body 6 inches high and, like many things when they are compressed, had an inclination to explode. Constable Swires had been on the force only for a few months, but news had gone around and already he inspired respect, or at least the bladder-trembling terror that can pass for respect on these occasions. "Don't just stand there gulping. Where's yon stiff?" said Swires, striding into the factory.
"We put him in der cellar,"
said the troll.
"and now we got half a ton of liquid rubber running to waste. He'd be livid 'bout that, if he was alive, of course."
"Why's it wasted?" said Reg.
"Gone all thick and manky, hasn't it? I'm gonna have to dump it later on, and that's not easy. We were supposed to be dipping a load of ribbed magical delights today too, but all der ladies felt faint when I hauls him out of der vat, and they went off home."
Red Shoe looked shocked. He was not, for various reasons, a patron of Mr. Sonky's wares, romance not being a regular feature of the life of the dead. But surely the world of the living had some standards, didn't it? "You employ ladies here?" he said. The troll looked surprised.
"Yeah, sure. It's good steady work. They were good workers too, always laughing and telling jokes while they were doing their dipping and packing, especially when we're doing the big boys."
The troll sniffed.
"Personally, I don't understand their jokes."
"Them big boys are bloody good value for a penny," said Buggy Swires. Red Shoe stared at his tiny partner. There was just no way that he was going to ask the question, but Swires must have seen his expression. "After a bit of work with yon scissors, ye won't find a better Macintosh in the whole city," said the gnome, and laughed nastily. Constable Shoe sighed. He knew that Mr. Vimes had an unofficial policy of getting ethnic minorities into the watch. Footnote 10. As a member of the dead community, Reg Shoe naturally thought of himself as an ethnic majority. End footnote 10. He knew that Mr. Vimes had an unofficial policy of getting ethnic minorities into the watch, but he wasn't sure this was wise in the case of gnomes, even though there was, admittedly, no ethnic group that was more minor. They had an inbuilt resistance to rules. This didn't just apply to the law, but to all the invisible rules that most people obeyed unthinkingly, like, do not attempt to eat this giraffe, or do not headbutt people in the ankle just because they won't give you a chip. It was best to think of Constable Swires simply as a small independent weapon. You'd better show us the person who is currently vitally challenged, he said. They were led downstairs. What was hanging from a beam there would have frightened the life out of anyone who wasn't already a zombie.
Sorry about that,
said the troll, pulling it down and tossing it into a corner, where it coiled into a rubbery heap.
What the hell was it?
Said Constable Swires.
We had to pull the rubber off of him, said the troll. Sets quick, see? Once you get it out in the air.
Hey, that's the biggest sonky I ever saw, chuckled Buggy. A whole body sonky. Reckon that's the way he wanted to go? Reg looked at the corpse. He didn't mind being sent out on murders, even messy ones. The way he saw it, dying was really just a career change. Been there, done that. Worn the shroud. And then you got over it and got on with your life. Of course, he knew that many people didn't, for some reason, but he thought of them as not prepared to make the effort. There was a ragged wound in the neck. Any next of kin? He said.
He got a brother in Uberwald. We've sent word, the troll added. On der Klacks. It cost $20. That's murder.
Can you think of any reason why someone would kill him? The troll scratched his head.
Well, 'cause they wanted him dead, I reckon. That's a good reason.
And why would anyone want him dead, do you think? Red Shoe could be very, very patient. Has there been any trouble?
Business ain't been so good, I know that.
Really? I'd have thought you'd be coining money here.
Oh, yeah, that's what you think. But not everything people calls a sonky is made by us, see? It's to do with us becoming.
The troll's face screwed up with cerebral effort.
Generic. Lots of other buggers are jumping up and down on their bandwagon, and they got better plant and new ideas, like making them in cheese and onion flavor and with bells on and stuff like that. Mr. Sonky won't have nothing to do with that kind of thing, and that's been costing us sales.
I can see this would worry him, said Reg, in a keep-on-talking tone of voice.
He's been locking himself in his office a lot.
Oh, why's that? Said Reg.
He's their boss. You don't ask their boss. But he did say that there was a special job coming up, and that had put us back on our feet.
Really? Said Reg, making a mental note. What kind of job?
Dunno. You don't
ask the boss, said Reg. Right. I suppose no one saw the murder, did they? Once again, the troll screwed up his enormous face and thought,
the murderer? Yeah, and probably Mr. Sonky.
Was there a third party?
I dunno. I never get invited to them things.
Apart from Mr. Sonky and the murderer, said Shoe, still as patient as the grave. Was there anyone else here last night?
Dunno,
said the troll. Thank you. You've been very helpful, said Shoe. We'll have a look around if you don't mind.
Sure.
The troll went back to his vat. Reg Shoe hadn't expected to find anything and was not disappointed, but he was thorough. Zombies usually are. Mr. Vimes had told him never to get too excited about clues, because clues could lead you a dismal dance. They could become a habit. You ended up finding a wooden leg, a silk slipper, and a feather at the scene of a crime, and constructing an elegant theory involving a one-legged ballet dancer and a production of Chicken Lake. The door to the office was open. It was hard to tell if anything had been disturbed. Shu got the impression that the mess was normal. A desk was awash with paperwork. Mr. Sonky, having followed the usual, put it down somewhere method of filing. A bench was covered with samples of rubber, bits of sacking, large bottles of chemicals, and some wooden molds that Reg refrained from looking at too closely. "Did you hear Corporal Littlebottom talking about that museum theft when we came on duty today, Buggy?" he said, opening a jar of yellow powder and sniffing it. "No." "I did," said Reg. He put the lid on the sulphur again and sniffed the air of the factory. It smelled of liquid rubber, which is very much like the smell of incontinent cats. "And some things stick in the mind," he said. "Special job, eh?" It was Constable Visit the Infidel with explanatory pamphlets his week as communications officer, which largely meant looking after the pigeons and keeping an eye on the clacks, with, of course, the assistance of Constable Downspout. Constable Downspout was a gargoyle. When it came to staring fixedly at one thing, you couldn't beat a gargoyle. The gargoyles were getting a lot of employment in the clacks industry. Constable Visit quite enjoyed the pigeons. He sang them hymns. They listened to short homilies, cocking their heads from side to side. After all, he reasoned, had not Bishop Horn preached to the mollusks of the sea? And there was no record of them actually listening, whereas he was certain that the pigeons were taking it in. And they seemed to be interested in his pamphlets on the virtues of omnianism, admittedly as nesting material at the moment, but this was certainly a good start. A pigeon fluttered in as he was scraping the perches. "Ah, Zebedina," he said, lifting her up and removing the message capsule from her leg. "Well done. This is from Constable Shoe, and you shall have some corn provided locally by Josiah Frument and Sons, seed merchants, but ultimately by the grace of Om." There was a whir of wings, and another pigeon settled on the perch. Constable Visit recognized it as Wilhelmina, one of Sergeant Angua's pigeons. He removed the message capsule. The thin paper inside was tightly folded, and on it someone had written, "Captain Carrot, personal." He hesitated, then put the message from Red Shoe into the pneumatic tube and heard the whoosh of the suction as it headed off to the main office. The other one, he decided, required a more careful delivery. Carrot was working in Vimes's office, but Visit noticed not at the commander's desk. Instead, he'd set up a folding table in the corner. The tottering piles of paperwork on the desk were slightly less alpine than yesterday. There were even occasional patches of desktop. "Personal message for you, Captain." "Thank you." "And Constable Shoe wants a sergeant down at Sonky's boot factory."
Did you send the message down to the office?
Yes, sir. The pneumatic tube is very useful, Visit added dutifully.
Commander Vimes isn't very keen on it, but I'm sure it will eventually save us time,
said Carrot. He unfolded the note. Visit watched him. Carrot's lips moved slightly as he read.
Where did the pigeon come from?
He said at last, screwing up the note. It looks pretty worn out, sir. Not from inside the city, I'm sure.
Ah, right. Thank you.
Bad news, sir? Visit angled.
Just news, Constable. Don't let me detain you.
Right, sir. When the disappointed Visit had gone, Carrot went and looked out of the window. There was a typical Ankh-Morpork street scene outside, although people were trying to separate them. After a few minutes, he went back to his table, wrote a short note, put it into one of the little carriers, and sent it away with a hiss of air. A few minutes later, Sergeant Cullen came panting along the corridor. Carrot was very keen on modernizing the watch, and in some strange way, sending a message via the tube was so much more modern than simply opening the door and shouting, which is what Mr. Vimes did. Carrot gave Cullen a bright smile.
Ah, Fred, everything going well?
Yes, sir,
said Fred Cullen uncertainly.
Good. I'm off to see the patrician, Fred. As senior sergeant, you are in charge of the watch until Mr. Vimes gets back.
Yes, sir.
Until you get back, you mean? I shall not be coming back, Fred. I am resigning.
The patrician looked at the badge on his desk.
And well-trained men,
Carrot was saying somewhere in front of him.
After all, a few years ago there were only 4 of us in the watch. Now it's functioning just like a machine.
Yes, although bits of it do go boing occasionally, said Lord Veterinary, still staring at the badge. Could I invite you to reconsider, Captain?
I've reconsidered several times, sir, and it's not Captain, sir.
The watch needs you, Mr. Iron Founderson.
The watch is bigger than one man, sir,
said Carrot, still looking straight ahead. I'm not sure if it's bigger than Sergeant Cullen, though.
People get mistaken about old Fred, sir. He's a man with a solid bottom to his character.
He's got a solid bottom to his bottom, Mr. Iron Founderson.
I mean, he doesn't flap in an emergency, sir.
He doesn't do anything in an emergency, said the patrician, except possibly hide. I might go so far as to say that the man appears to consist of an emergency in his own right.
My mind is made up, sir.
Lord Veterinary sighed, sat back and stared up at the ceiling for a moment. Then, all I can do is thank you for your services, Captain, and wish you good luck in your future endeavor. Do you have enough money?
I've saved quite a lot, sir.
Nevertheless, it is a long way to Uberwald. There was silence.
Sir?
Yes?
How did you know?
Oh, people measured it years ago. Surveyors and so forth.
Sir!
Veterinary sighed. I think the term is deduction. Be that as it may, Captain, I am choosing to believe that you are merely taking an extended leave of absence. I understand that you've never taken a holiday while you've been here. I'm sure you're owed a few weeks. Carrot said nothing. And if I was you, I'd begin my search for Sergeant Angua at the Shambling Gate, Veterinary added. After a while, Carrot said quietly, "Is that a result of information received, my lord?" Veterinary smiled a thin little smile. "No, but Uberwald is going through some troubling times. And of course, she is from one of the aristocratic families. I surmise that she has been called away. Beyond that, I cannot be of much help. You will have to follow, as they say, your nose." "No, I think I can find a much more reliable nose than mine," said Carrot. "Good." Lord Veterinary went back to his desk and sat down. "I wish you well in your search. Nevertheless, I'm sure we'll be seeing you again. A lot of people here depend on you." "Yes, sir." "Good day to you." When Carrot had gone, Lord Veterinary got up and walked across to the other side of the room, where a map of Uberwald was unrolled on a table. It was quite old, but in recent years, any map makers who had wandered off the beaten track in that country had spent all their time trying to find it again. There were a few rivers, their courses mostly guesswork, and the occasional town, or at least the name of a town, probably put in to save the cartographer the embarrassment of filling his chart with, as they say in the trade, MMBU. Footnote 11. Miles and miles of bloody Uberwald. End footnote 11. The door opened and Veterinary's head clerk, Drumknot, eased his way in with the silence of a feather falling in a cathedral. "A somewhat unexpected development, my lord," he said quietly. Uncharacteristic one, certainly," said Veterinary. "Do you wish me to send a clax to Vimes, sir? He could be back in a day or so." Veterinary was looking intently at the blind, blank map. It was, he felt, very much like the future. A few things were outlined. There were some rough guesses, but everything else was waiting to be created. He said. "Do you wish me to recall Vimes, sir?" "Good heavens, no. Vimes in Uberwald will be more amusing than an amorous armadillo. Amorous armadillo in a bowling alley. And who else could I send? Only Vimes could go to Uberwald." "But surely this is an emergency, sir?" "What else are we to call it, sir, when a young man of such promise throws away his career for the pursuit of a girl?" The patrician stroked his beard and smiled at something. There was a line across the map, the progress of the semaphore towers. It was mathematically straight, a statement of intellect in the crowding darkness of miles and miles of bloody Uberwald. "Possibly a bonus," he said. "Uberwald has much to teach us. Fetch me the papers on the werewolf clans, will you? Oh, and although I swore I would never ever do this, please prepare a message for Sergeant Colin too. Promotion, alas, beckons." A grubby cloth cap lay on the pavement. On the pavement beside the cap, someone had written in damp chalk, "Please help this little doggy." Beside it sat a small dog. It was not cut out by nature to be a friendly little waggy-tailed dog, but it was making the effort. Whenever someone walked by, it sat up on its hind legs and whined pitifully. Something landed in the cap. It was a washer. The charitable pedestrian had gone only a few steps further along the road when he heard,
"And I hope your legs fall off, mister."
The man turned. The dog was watching him intently.
"Woof,"
it said. He looked puzzled, shrugged, and then turned and walked on.
"Yeah, bloody woof woof,"
said the strange voice as he was about to turn the corner. A hand reached down and picked up the dog by the scruff of its neck. "Hello, Gaspod. I believe I've solved a little mystery."
"Oh no,"
the dog moaned. "That's not being a good dog, Gaspod," said Carrot, lifting the dog so they could meet eye to eye.
All right, put me down, will you? This hurts, you know."
"I need your help, Gaspod."
"Not me. I don't help the watch. Nothing personal, but it doesn't do anything for my street cred."
"I'm not talking about helping the watch, Gaspod. This is personal. I need your nose." Carrot lowered the dog to the pavement and rubbed his hand on his shirt. Unfortunately, this means I need the rest of you as well. Although, of course, I am aware that under that itchy exterior beats a heart of gold."
"Really?"
said Gaspod.
"Nothing good starts with, 'I need your help.'"
"It's anger.
Oh dear."
I want you to track her."
"Huh. Not many dogs could track a werewolf, mister.
"They're cunning." Go to the best, I always say," said Carrot.
"Finest nose known to man or beast,"
said Gaspod, wrinkling it.
"Where's she gone then?"
"To Uberwald, I think." Carrot moved fast. Gaspod's flight was hindered by the hand gripping his tail.
"That's hundreds of miles away, and dog miles is 7 times longer. Not a chance."
"Oh, all right then. Silly of me to suggest it," said Carrot, letting go. "You're right. It's ridiculous." Gaspod turned, suddenly full of suspicion.
"No, I didn't say it was ridiculous," he said. "I just said it was hundreds of miles away."
"Yes, but you said you had no chance."
"No, I said that you had no chance of getting me to do it."
"Yes, but winter's coming on, and as you say, a werewolf is very hard to track, and on top of that, Angwar's a copper. She'll work out that I'd use you, so she'll be covering her trail." Gaspod whined.
"Oh, look, mister. Respect is hard to earn in this dog's town. If I'm not smelled around the lamppost for a couple of weeks, my stock is definitely in the gutter, right?"
Yes, I understand. I'll make some other arrangements. Nervous Nigel's still around, isn't he?"
"What? That spaniel? He couldn't smell his own bottom if you put it in front of him."
"They say he's pretty good, nasally."
"And he whittles every time anyone looks at him,"
snapped Gaspod. "I heard he can smell a dead rat 2 miles away."
"Yeah? Well, I can smell what colour it is."
Carrot sighed. "Well, I've got no choice, I'm afraid. You can't do it, so I didn't say." Gaspod stopped and then went on. "I'm going to do it, aren't I? I'm bloody well going to do it."
"You're going to trick me, or blackmail me, or whatever it takes, aren't you?"
"Yes. How do you manage to write, Gaspod?"
"I holds the chalk in my mouth. Easy."
"You're a smart dog. I've always said so. The world's only talking dog too.
Lower your voice. Lower your voice, said Gaspard, looking around. Here, Uberwald's wolf country, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I could have been a wolf, you know, with different parents, of course. Gaspard sniffed and looked furtively up and down the street again.
Steak?
Every night.
Right.
Sergeant Cullen was a picture of misery drawn on a lumpy pavement in bad crayon on a wet day. He sat on a chair and occasionally glanced at the message that had just been delivered, as if hoping that the words would somehow fade away.
Bloody hell, Nobby, he moaned.
There, Fred, said Nobby, currently a vision in organdy. Organdy, a very fine transparent muslin with a stiff finish. Muslin, a cloth of sorts. There, Fred, said Nobby, currently a vision in organdy.
I can't be promoted. I'm not an officer. I am base, common and popular.
I've always said that about you, Fred. You got common off to a treat.
But it's writ down, Nobby. Look, his lordship signed it.
Well, the way I see it, you've got three choices, said Nobby.
Yeah?
You can go and tell him you're not doing it. The panic in Cullen's face was replaced by glazed grey terror.
Thank you very much, Nobby, he said bitterly. Let me know if you got any more suggestions like that, 'cause I'll need to go and change my underwear.
Or you could accept it and make such a cock-up of it that he takes it away from you.
You're doing this on purpose, Nobby.
Might be worth a try, Fred.
Yeah, but the thing about cock-ups, Nobby, is that it's hard for you to be, precise. You might think you're making a little cock-up, and then it blows up in your face. And it turns out to be, in fact, a big cock-up. And in those circumstances, Nobby, I'm sort of worried that what his lordship might take away from me wouldn't just be the job. I hope I don't have to draw you a picture.
Good point, Fred.
What I'm saying is, cock-ups is like... cock-ups is... the thing about cock-ups is you never know what size they're going to be.
Well, Fred, the third choice is you putting up with it.
That's not helpful, Nobby.
It'll only be for a couple of weeks. Then Mr. Vimes will be back.
Yeah, but supposing he isn't. Nasty place, Uberwald. I heard where it's misery wrapped in an enema. That doesn't sound too good. You can fall down things. Then I'm stuck, right? I don't know how to do officering.
No one knows how to do officering, Fred. That's why they're officers. If they knew anything, they'd be sergeants. Now Cullen's face screwed up again in desperate thought. As a lifelong uniformed man, a three-striped peg that had found a three-striped hole very early in its career, he subscribed automatically and unthinkingly to the belief that officers as a class could not put their own trousers on without a map. He conscientiously excluded Vimes and Carrot from the list, elevating them to the rank of honorary sergeant. Nobby was watching him with an expression of combined concern, friendliness and predatory intent.
What shall I do, Nobby?
Well, Captain, said Nobby, and then he gave a little cough. What officers mainly have to do, as you know, is sign things. The door was knocked on and opened at the same time by a flustered constable. Sarge, Constable Shue says he really does need an officer down at Sonky's factory.
What? The Rubber Valley man?
Said Colin.
Right. An officer. Right. We'll be along.
And that's Captain Cullen, said Nobby quickly.
Yes. And that's Captain Cullen. Thank you very much,
said Cullen, adding as his resolve stiffened.
And I'll thank you not to forget it.
The constable stared at them and then stopped trying to understand. And there's a troll downstairs who insists on speaking to whoever's in charge.
Can't Strong and the Arm deal with it?
Is Sergeant Strong and the Arm still a sergeant? Said the constable.
Yes.
Even unconscious?
What?
He's flat on the floor right now, sir. Captain.
What's the troll want?
Right now he wants to kill someone, but mainly I think he wants someone to take the clamp off of his foot. Gaspard ran up and down, nose barely an inch from the ground. Carrot waited, holding his horse. It was a good one. Carrot hadn't spent a lot of his wages up until now. Finally, the dog sat down and looked depressed.
So, tell me about this wonderful nose the patrician has got then, he said.
Not a trace.
You'd better get veterinary down here if he's so good, said
Gaspard.
What's the point of starting here? Worst place in the whole city.
It's the gate to the cattle market, am I right? Trying not to smell stuff is the trick here, is the point I'm making. There's ground in stink. If you wanted to get on the trail of somebody, this is the last place I'd start. Very good point, said Carrot carefully. So what's the strongest smell heading hubwards? Dung carts, of course. Yesterday. Always a big clear out of the pens first thing Friday morning. You can follow the smell? Gaspard rolled his eyes. With my head in a bucket. Good. Let's go. So, said Gaspard, as they began to leave the gate's bustle behind. We're chasing this girl, right? Yes. Just you? Yes. Not like with dogs then, where there might be 20 or 30. No. So we're not looking at a bucket of cold water here? No. Constable Shue saluted, but a little testily. He'd been waiting rather a long time. Afternoon, Sergeant.
That's Captain,
said Captain Cullen.
See the pip on my shoulder, Reg?
Reg looked closely. I thought it was bird doing, Sarge.
That's Captain,
said Cullen automatically. It's only chalk now because I ain't got time to get it done properly, he said. So don't be cheeky. What's up with Nobby? Said Reg. Corporal Nobbs was holding a damp cloth over one eye. Bit of a country tomps with an illegally parked troll, said Captain Cullen. Shows what kind of troll he was, striking a lady, muttered Nobby. But you ain't a lady, Nobby. You're just wearing your traffic calming disguise. He wasn't to know. You got your helmet on. Anyway, you shouldn't have clamped him. He was parked, Fred. He'd been knocked down by a cart, said Captain Cullen. And that's Captain. Well, they always have excuses, said Nobby sullenly.
You'd better show us the corpus, Reg, said Cullen.
The body in the cellar was duly inspected. And I remember Sherry saying there was a smell of cat's pee and sulphur at the Dwarf Bread Museum, said Reg.
Certainly hangs about, said Cullen. You wouldn't have blocked sinuses if you worked here for a day.
And I thought, I wonder if someone tried to make a mould of the replica scone, sir, said Reg.
Now that is clever, said Fred Cullen. You'd get the real one back then, wouldn't you?
No, Sarge, Captain, but you'd get a copy of the replica.
Would that be legal?
Can't say, sir. I wouldn't think so. It wouldn't fool a dwarf for 5 minutes.
Then who'd want to kill him?
A father of 13 kids, maybe, said Nobby. Ha ha!
Nobby, will you stop pinching the merchandise? Said Cullen. And don't argue. I just saw you put a couple of dozen in your handbag. That don't matter, rumbled the troll. Mr. Sankey always said they was free to the watch. That was very civic of him, said Captain Cullen. Yeah, he said the last thing we wanted was more bloody coppers around the city.
A pigeon chose that diplomatic moment to flutter into the factory and land on Colin's shoulder, where it promoted him. Colin reached up, removed the message capsule, and unfolded the contents.
It's from Visit, he said. There's a clue, he says.
What to? Said Nobby.
Not to anything, Nobby. Just a clue.
He took off his helmet and wiped his brow. This what he'd hoped to avoid. In his heart of battered hearts, he suspected that Vimes and Carrot were good at putting clues next to other clues and thinking about them. That was their talent. He had others. Well, he was good with people, and he had a shiny breastplate, and he could sergeant in his sleep.
All right, write up your report, he said. Well done. We're going back to the yard. I can see this is going to get on top of me, said Colin as they walked away. There's paperwork too. You know me and paperwork, Nobby.
You're a very thorough reader, that's all, Fred, said Nobby. I've seen you take ages over just one page, digesting it magisterially, I thought. Colin brightened a little.
Yes, that's what I do, he said.
Even if it's only the menu down at the Collection Takeaway. I've seen you staring at one line for a minute at a time.
Well, obviously, you can't let people put one over you, said Cullen,
sticking out his chest, or at least sticking it further up. What you need is an aide-de-camp, said Nobby, lifting his dress to step over at Puddle.
I do?
Oh, yes, 'cause of you being a figurehead and setting an example to your men, said Nobby.
Ah, right, yes, said Cullen,
grasping the idea with relief.
A man can't be expected to do all that and read long words, am I right?
Exactly. And of course, we're down one sergeant at the yard now, said Nobby.
Good point, Nobby. It's going to be busy.
They walked on for a while.
You could promote someone,
Nobby prompted.
Could I?
What good's being the boss if you can't?
That's true, and it's sort of an emergency. Any thoughts, Nobby?
Nobby sighed inwardly. A penny could drop through wet cement faster than it could drop for Fred Cullen. A name springs to mind, he said.
Oh, right, yes. Red Shoe, right? Good at writing, a keen thinker, and of course he's cool-headed, said Cullen. I see. Practically.
But a bit on the dead side, said Nobby.
Yes, I suppose that counts against him.
And he goes to pieces unpredictably, said Nobby.
That's true, said Captain Cullen. No one likes shaking hands and ending up with more fingers than they started with.
So perhaps it might be best to consider someone who has been unreasonably overlooked, said Nobby, going for broke. Someone whose face don't fit, perhaps. Someone who's experienced in the watch generally and in traffic in particular could be of great service to the city if people wouldn't go on about one or two lapses which didn't happen in any case. The dawn of intelligence rose across the vistas of Colin's face.
Ah, he said, I see. Well, why didn't you come right out with that at the start, Nobby?
Well, it's your decision, Fred.
I mean, Captain, said Nobby earnestly. But supposing Mr. Vimes doesn't agree, he'll be back in a couple of weeks.
That'll be long enough, said Nobby.
And you don't mind? Me? Mind?
Not me. You know me, Fred. Always ready to do my bit.
Nobby?
Yes, Fred.
The dress?
Yes, Fred.
I thought we weren't doing the traffic calming anymore.
Yes, Fred. But I thought I'd keep it on, ready to swing into action just in case you decided that we should. A chilly wind blew across the cabbage fields. To Gaspard it brought, besides the overpowering fumes of the cabbage and the dark red smell of the dung carts, hints of pine, mountains, snow, sweat, and stale cigar smoke. The last came from the cartmen's habit of smoking large, cheap cigars. They kept the flies off. It was better than vision. The world of smell stretched before Gaspard.
My paws hurt, he said.
There's a good dog, said Carrot. The road forked. Gaspard stopped and snuffled around.
Well, here's an interesting thing, he said. Some of the dungs jumped down off of the cart and headed away across the fields here. You were right.
Can you smell water anywhere around? Said Carrot, scanning the flat plain. Gaspard's mottled nose wrinkled up in effort.
Pond, he said. Not very big. About a mile away.
She'll be heading towards it. Very meticulous about cleanliness, Angua. That's not usual in werewolves.
Never been one for water myself,
said Gaspard. Is that a fact?
Here, no need for that. I had a BATH once, you know. It's not as if I don't know what it's like.
The pond was in a clump of wind-blown trees. Dry grass rustled in the breeze. A single coot scuttled into the reeds as Carrot and Gaspard approached.
Yeah, here we are,
said Gaspard.
A lot of muck goes in, and
he sniffed at the stirred-up mud.
Yeah, she comes out.
Is there a problem? Said Carrot.
What? Oh no, clear scent. Head in for the mountains, just like you said.
Gaspard sat down and scratched himself with a hind leg. There's a problem, isn't there? Said Carrot.
Well, supposing there was something really bad that you wouldn't really want to know, and I knew what it was, how'd you feel about me telling you? I mean, some people would rather not. It's a personal thing. Gaspard! She's not alone. There's another wolf.
Ah. Carrot's mild, uninformative smile did not change.
Of the male persuasion, said Gaspard. A boy wolf. Very much so.
Thank you, Gaspard.
Extremely male. In a very definite way. Unmistakable.
Yes, I think I understand.
And this is just words. In smell, it's a lot more, well, emphatic.
Thank you for that, Gaspard. And they're heading...
Still straight for the mountains, boss,
said Gaspard as kindly as he could. He wasn't certain of all the details of human sexual relationships, and the ones he was certain of he still couldn't quite believe. But he knew that they were a lot more complicated than those enjoyed by the doggy fraternity.
This smell, the extremely male one I was talking about?
The very one, yes, said Carrot, levelly. You could still smell it if you were on the horse, could you?
I could smell it with my nose in a sack of onions.
Good, because I think we should move a little faster now.
Yes, I thought you'd think that.
Constable Visit saluted when Nobby and Cullen entered Sidopolis Yard. I thought you ought to know about this right away, sir, he said, flourishing a square of paper. I just got it off Rodney.
Who?
The imp on the bridge, sir. He paints pictures of carts going too fast. No one had been feeding him, Visit added in a mildly accusing tone.
Oh, someone speeding, said Cullen. So?
He looked again.
That's one of those sedan chairs the deep down dwarves use, isn't it? Them trolls must have been moving.
It was just after the scone was stolen, said Visit. Rodney writes the time in the corner. See? A bit odd, I thought. Like a kind of getaway vehicle, sir.
What did a dwarf want to steal a worthless lump of rock for? Said Cullen. Especially them dark dwarves. They give me the creeps in those stupid clothes they wear.
Angry silence rang like a dropped girder in a temple. There were 3 dwarves in the room.
You two! You ought to be out on patrol!
Barked Sergeant Strong in the arm.
I've got business down at Chitling Street.
All 3 dwarves marched out, somehow contriving even to walk angrily.
Well, what was that about?
Said Fred Cullen.
Bit touchy, aren't they? Mr. Vimes says that sort of thing all the time, and no one minds.
Yes, but that's because he's Sam Vimes, said Nobby.
Oh, and are you inferring I'm not?
Said Captain Cullen. Well, yes, Fred. You're Fred Cullen, said Nobby patiently.
Oh, I am I?
Yes, Captain Cullen.
And they'd better bloody remember it,
Cullen snapped.
I'm not a soft touch, me. I'm not going to take insubordination like that. I've always said Vimes was a bit too soft on those dwarves. They gets the same pay as us, and they're only half the size.
Yes, yes, said Nobby, waving his hands placatingly. Placate. To soothe or mollify, especially by concessions. Placate. Placatingly. Yes, yes, said Nobby, waving his hands placatingly in a desperate attempt to calm things down. But Fred, trolls are twice as big as us, and they get paid the same, so it...
But they've only got a quarter of the brains, so it's just the same, like I said.
The noise they heard was long and drawn out and menacing. It was the sound of Lance Constable Blue John's chair being pushed back. The floor creaked as he shambled past Colin. removed his helmet from its peg with one enormous hand, and headed for the door.
I'm going on patrol,
he mumbled. You're not on patrol for another hour, said Constable Visit.
I'm going now,
said Blue John. The room was darkened for a moment as he eclipsed the doorway, and then he was gone.
Why's everyone so tetchy all of a sudden?
said Cullen. The remaining constables tried not to catch his eye.
Did I hear someone snigger?
he demanded.
I didn't hear anyone snigger, Sarge, said Nobby. Oh, you think I'm a sergeant, do you, Corporal Nobbs?
No, Fred,
Oh, gods. I can see things have got pretty slack around here, said Captain Cullen with an evil little gleam in his eye. I bet you were all thinking, oh, it's only fat old Fred Cullen. It's all going to be gravy from now on, eh?
Oh, Fred, no one thinks you're old. Oh, gods.
Just fat, eh?
Fred glowered around the room. Suddenly, and against all previous evidence, everyone was vitally interested in their paperwork.
Right. Well, from now on, things are going to be different, said Captain Cullen. Oh, yes. I'm on to all your little tricks. Who said that?
Said what, Captain? said Nobby, who'd also heard the little whispered, We learned them all from you, Sarge. But at this moment would eat live coals rather than admit it.
Someone said something blotto voice,
said Captain Cullen.
I'm sure they didn't, Captain,
said Nobby. Blotto. Slang. A drunk sense. Synonyms include besotted, blasted, blind, blitzed, bombed, boozy, canned, cock-eyed, crocked, drunk, drunken. Blotto.
Someone said something blotto voice,
said Captain Cullen. I'm sure they didn't, Captain, said Nobby.
And I won't be eyeballed like that neither.
No one's looking at you, wailed Nobby.
Ha ha! You think I don't know that one?
Cullen shouted.
There's plenty of ways to eyeball someone without looking at him, Corporal. That man over there is earlobing me.
I think Constable Ping is just really interested in the report he's writing, Fred.
Sorry, Captain.
Cullen's ruffled feathers settled a little.
Well, all right. And now I'm going up to my office, all right? There'll be some changes around here. And someone bring me a cup of tea.
They watched him go up the stairs, enter the office, and slam the door. Well, the Constable Ping began, but Nobby, who had a lot more experience of the Cullen personality, waved one hand frantically for silence while he held the other one to his ear, very theatrically. Then they all heard the door click open again quietly. A change is as good as a rest, I suppose, said Constable Ping. As the prophet Osori says, better an ox in the potter's fields of Her Sheba than a sandal in the wine presses of Gash, said Constable Visit. Yeah, so I've heard, said Nobby. Well, I'll just make him his tea. Everyone feels better after a cup of tea. A couple of minutes later, the constables heard Cullen shouting, even through the door.
What is wrong with this mug, Corporal?
Nothing, sir. It's your mug. You always have your tea in it.
Ah, but you see, it is a sergeant's mug, Corporal. And what is it that officers drink out of?
Well, Carrot and Mr. Vimes have got their own mugs.
No, they may choose to drink out of mugs, Corporal, but what regulations say officers have a cup and saucer? Says so right here. Regulation 301 subsection C. Do you understand me?
I don't think we've got any.
You know where the petty cash is. Usually, you're the only person that does. You're dismissed, Corporal.
Nobby came down the stairs, white-faced, holding the offending receptacle. The door opened again.
And none of you are to gob in it neither, shouted Cullen. I know that one, and it's to be stirred with a spoon, understand? I know that one too.
The door slammed. Constable Visit took the mug from Nobby's shaking hand and patted him on the shoulder. Chalky the Troll does some very good seconds, I understand, he began. The door opened.
Bloody China too!
The door slammed. Anyone seen the petty cash lately? Said Constable Ping. Nobby reached mournfully into his pocket and pulled out some dollars. He handed them to Visit. Better go to that posh shop in Kingsway, he said. Get one of those cups and saucers thin enough to see through. You know, with gold around the trim. He looked around the other constables. What are you lot doing here? You won't catch many criminals in here. Does the petty cash count, Nobby? Said Ping. Don't you nobby me, Ping. You just get out there, and the rest of you,